In a quiet African village, young Tunde lived happily with his loving mother, Mama Amina. Though poor, Mama Amina worked tirelessly every day, ensuring her son never lost hope. Villagers admired Mama Amina's kindness because she always shared, despite having very little. One morning, Mama Amina became seriously ill and struggled to complete her daily chores. As days passed, her condition worsened, and Tunde worried about losing his only family. Gathering her remaining strength, Mama Amina invited Tunde for a special walk outside. Slowly, they walked toward a giant mango tree, standing proudly beside the village path. Beneath the tree, Mama Amina held Tunde's hands and looked deeply into his eyes. She said to him, "My son, life will test you, but never abandon kindness or compassion." With tears forming, Tunde promised faithfully to honor his mother's words forever. Mama Amina smiled gently, comforted by the promise her beloved son had made. As they began walking home, Mama Amina suddenly staggered, struggling to stay upright. Tunde rushed forward, frightened, calling desperately for help as his mother collapsed. Villagers ran toward them, but nobody knew whether Mama Amina would survive. Villagers carried Mama Amina home and gently laid her on her wooden bed. The village elder checked her pulse, while worried neighbors stood silently beside her. Tunde knelt beside her, holding her hand tightly, praying silently with tears falling. Her breathing slowly faded until the room became completely silent and still. By morning, the heartbreaking news spread throughout the village that she had passed away. As everyone departed, Tunde realized he was now completely alone in life. The once joyful hut felt empty without Mama Amina's comforting presence inside. Food quickly became scarce, forcing Tunde to face hunger for the first time. Determined to survive, Tunde worked tirelessly, doing difficult jobs around the village. A few people showed compassion, but many believed his troubles were unavoidable. Despite hard work, the money he earned was barely enough for survival. Each day, memories of his mother's words gave him strength to continue. Lonely nights became harder as Tunde battled hunger, sadness, and uncertainty alone. Though exhausted and weak, Tunde refused to surrender to life's hardships. Then one day, a mysterious stranger arrived in the village and began asking questions. To everyone's surprise, the old man seemed determined to find Tunde. Tunde wondered why someone he had never met was looking for him.
The old man holds Tunde and says, "I have been searching for you." Tunde was confused, revealing a mystery yet untold.
The old man's words hung in the air like smoke, calm, certain, and completely unexpected. Tunde's hands trembled. He had done nothing wrong, yet fear gripped every part of him. Word had already spread, and everyone in the village was watching and wondering. Without rushing, the stranger sat down calmly and gestured for Tunde to come closer. Something in the stranger's gentle eyes reminded Tunde of his mother's familiar warmth. Sensing the boy's fear, the old man spoke softly, assuring Tunde he had nothing to worry about.
"I knew your mother," the stranger said quietly. "Mama Amina was a truly remarkable woman."
Hearing his mother's name from a stranger's lips shook something deep inside Tunde's heart. She had fed him, sheltered him for a night, and asked for absolutely nothing in return. He explained that years ago, Mama Amina had shown him kindness when absolutely no one else would. "I made a promise that day," he said firmly, "that I would repay her kindness if I ever could." He handed Tunde something he had carefully kept for many years, waiting for this very moment. Inside was enough to rebuild a life: money, seeds for planting, and a letter in his mother's handwriting. But before disappearing into the evening road, the stranger paused and said, "Open the letter only under the mango tree." That night, Tunde could not sleep. His mother's letter lay before him like a door he was not yet ready to open. The old man's words hung in the air like smoke, calm, certain, and completely unexpected. When morning came, Tunde knew what he had to do. He picked up the letter and walked toward the mango tree. Beneath the same tree where his mother once made him promise to be kind, Tunde finally opened the letter. Mama Amina's words filled every line, full of love, full of wisdom, and full of a secret Tunde never knew. She had written about a piece of land near the river, a land that belonged to their family and had been taken unfairly long ago. Tunde had never known about the land, but his mother had never forgotten it. That same morning, Tunde walked to the river for the very first time, searching for what his mother had left behind. As he stood beside the quiet flowing river, Tunde saw someone he had never seen before. She was a girl about his age, quiet and still, as though the river itself had placed her there. When she noticed Tunde watching, she did not run. She simply looked back at him, equally curious and equally cautious. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Two children standing on the same piece of land, both with no idea how. Without a word, the girl picked up her pot and began to leave. But something about her made Tunde unable to look away. Tunde stood alone again, but something had shifted deep inside him. Who was she? And why was she here on this land? He returned to the village with more questions than answers, but also with something he had not felt in a long time.
But that evening, an old village woman approached Tunde with a look that stopped his heart and whispered,
"That girl by the river. You must stay far away from her." Who is this girl by the river? And why must Tunde stay away from her?
Tunde could not stop thinking about the girl by the river and about the warning the old woman had given him the night before.
But hunger had no patience for mysteries. Tunde's stomach reminded him that survival still came first. He counted what little he had and decided to use some of the stranger's coins to buy food from the market. The market was full of life, but Tunde moved through it quietly, spending only what he absolutely needed. He bought enough to last a few days and saved the rest. Mama Amina had always taught him never to waste what little you have. On his way home, something caught his eye: a hut filled with hungry children and a mother too tired to lift her head. Tunde stood at that doorway and felt something he recognized deeply, the same hunger he had carried alone since his mother died. And in that moment, his mother's voice came back to him clearly: "Help others whenever possible, even when you have little." Without hesitation, Tunde placed his food before the hungry children, keeping almost nothing for himself. The mother's tears said everything her words could not. And for the first time in weeks, Tunde felt his mother's spirit close beside him. He walked home with nothing in his hands, but something in his chest felt full, in a way that food alone could never fill. As he ate what little remained, Tunde looked at the seeds the stranger had given him and began to think about the land his mother had written about. That afternoon, Tunde returned to the riverland alone and felt something powerful the moment his hands touched the earth. This land could grow food. This land could give life. This land could change everything if only it truly belonged to him. But before Tunde could even rise to his feet, a man arrived, whose eyes carried neither kindness nor welcome. And his message was clear: get off this land, now. Who is this man? Does he own the land? And what will Tunde do next?
That night, Tunde could not sleep. The man's warning at the river echoed in his mind again and again.
He walked through the village alone that morning, carrying a weight too heavy for any 12-year-old boy to bear. He returned to the mango tree and read his mother's letter one more time, searching her words for an answer to what he should do next. Mama Amina had suffered to protect that land. She had kept the secret her entire life, and she had trusted Tunde with the truth for a reason. Tunde made his decision. He would not walk away from his mother's land. But he could not fight alone. He went to the only person in the village who seemed to know more than she had told him, Betrayal, the old village elder woman. The old woman looked at Tunde for a long time without speaking, as if she was deciding how much of the truth he was ready to hear. Then she reached into an old pot in the corner of her hut and pulled out something she had been keeping hidden for many years. It was a land document, old and faded, but bearing the name of Tunde's family. Proof. Tunde stared at the document and felt the ground shift beneath him. His mother had been right. The land was theirs, and now he had proof. But the old woman's eyes carried a warning as heavy as the document itself. Having proof and winning the fight were two very different things. Tunde walked through the village with his mother's proof held tightly against his heart, heading back toward the riverland. He stood on the land that belonged to his family and felt something rise inside him that hunger and grief had never been able to kill: courage.
And when the man returned and found Tunde still standing on the land, something in Tunde's eyes made even him pause.
Tunde did not move. He did not run. For the first time in his life promptly, he stood his ground. That night, for the first time in a long time, Tunde slept peacefully. He had stood his ground, and it felt like victory.
But while Tunde slept fond, something was happening in the darkness of the village that he knew nothing about.
Someone had come to the riverland in the middle of the night for coyotes and set it on fire.
When Tunde stepped outside that morning and saw the smoke rising from the river, his heart stopped. He ran, faster than he had ever run in his life, his heart pounding with every step toward the river.
What he found at the river broke something inside him that even his mother's death had not broken. The land his mother had fought to protect. The land she had written about in her final letter, partially burned and covered in ash. Tunde knelt on the burnt earth and wept. Not just for the land, but for his mother. For everything she had carried alone. For everything he had lost. Word spread through the village quickly, and the people came to see what had been done. But nobody spoke of who had been done it. The old village elder woman came and stood beside Tunde. She had seen this kind of cruelty before, and she knew exactly who was behind it. But as Tunde lifted his head from the ashes, the grief in his eyes began to change into something his mother had always prayed he would find when life became hardest. He stood up from the ashes, wiped his face, and made a decision that no amount of fire could burn away. Tunde walked back through the village, with the document still safe against his heart. The fire had taken the grass, but it had not taken the proof. He returned to the only place that had ever given him strength, the mango tree where his mother had made him promise to never give up. And then, the girl from the river appeared. And this time, she did not walk away. For the first time since they had seen each other by the river, and the girl from the river did not walk away. And Tunde did not look away either. She walked toward him slowly,
as if she had been rehearsing this moment for a very long time, and was finally ready.
And then she did something that stopped Tunde's heart completely mowing. She reached into her dress and pulled out a letter she had been carrying, waiting for the right moment to place it in the right hands. As Tunde read the words inside, his entire world shifted beneath him once again. The letter was from his mother, another letter, written before she died, and addressed to the girl standing before him.
Mama Amina knew this girl, had trusted her, and had written to her with instructions that were meant for Tunde all along.
Mama Amina had written that the girl's own family had once been witnesses to the original land agreement,
and that their testimony could help Tunde reclaim what was rightfully his. The girl was not a stranger at all. She was a witness, and she was ready to stand beside Tunde and tell the truth. For the first time since his mother died, Tunde did not feel alone. Someone was standing beside him. And together they had both letters and the land document. Together they went to the village elder woman, the one person in the village wise enough and brave enough to know what to do next. When the old woman saw them standing together at her door, she closed her eyes briefly, as if something she had long been praying for had finally arrived. The old woman told them it was time to take the proof to the village council. The land document, the letters, and the girl's testimony. Together it was enough. And so Tunde stood before the village council, a 12-year-old boy with nothing but truth, proof, and one brave girl standing beside him. And then Pend, the man who had burned the land, arrived. And when he saw what Tunde was holding before the council,
he knew the battle had only just begun.
The village council had heard everything. The letters were read. The testimony was given. Now it was finally time for a decision. The council elders deliberated together in silence. This dispute had roots far older than anyone present could fully remember. But the powerful man stepped forward and boldly challenged everything Tunde had carefully presented before the village council elders.
Tunde watched and waited with complete stillness. He had the letters, the document, and the truth on his side.
Then the brave girl stepped forward before the council, carrying in her eyes the unshakable and undeniable weight of truth. The eldest councilman had lived long enough to know the clear difference between a confident lie and a genuine truth. Then the village elder woman placed before the council one final piece of evidence she had been keeping safely hidden for years. It was the original village land registry record, and it confirmed the riverside land had always belonged to Tunde's family. As the elder studied the record, the powerful man's confidence began to crumble.
The elders deliberated one final time. Then the senior elder raised his steady hand and the entire village fell completely silent. In all the years this village had stood, no single moment had ever carried this much weight and meaning for everyone.
The senior elder rose slowly to his feet and looked directly at Tunde with quiet, certain, and unwavering eyes. Then the elder finally spoke the words everyone had been waiting to hear. The council ruled in Tunde's favor. The land belonged to his family, and justice had finally prevailed. That evening, Tunde walked back to the mango tree alone and whispered the only words that truly mattered. The morning after the council's decision, the village woke up feeling different. Something heavy had finally been lifted. Tunde stepped outside and felt something he had almost forgotten how to feel, pawe, the quiet and gentle warmth of hope. He picked up the farming seeds the old stranger had given him and walked straight toward his mother's land. He knelt on his mother's land and planted the first seed vey, feeling Mama Amina's presence with every seed he pressed into the earth.
Then the girl from the river arrived. Without a single word, she knelt beside him and began planting seeds alongside him.
One by one, the villagers came. Nobody was asked. They simply came and placed their hands in the soil beside Tunde. Tunde looked up and saw the entire village working beside him. The tears he cried that moment were not tears of sadness. The village elder woman stood beside Tunde, and for the very first time her eyes carried no warning, only pride and peace.
As the afternoon sun began to fall, Tunde sat beside the river, looking at everything his mother had believed in and fought for.
He took out both of his mother's letters one final time and pressed them against his heart, letting her words fill him completely. That evening, Tunde walked back to the mango tree one final time, swarried, back to where everything had first begun. He sat beneath the same tree where his mother held his hands and asked him to promise to always be kind. He had lost his mother, gone hungry, been threatened, fallen, wept. Beneath the mango tree where it all began, Tunde finally smiled. Because Mama Amina had never truly left him.